Hey everyone, Eth Klein here, and today we're going to be continuing the Introduction to Python Pandas tutorial with a sentiment analysis of Reddit WallStreetBets post. So if you don't know, Reddit WallStreetBets is a subreddit where users discuss stocks and options trading, and it's become pretty popular in the recent news involving GameStop. So we're going to be doing a sentiment analysis, that is to judge posts based on their sentimental evaluation. So if you look at this Kaggle data set, which I'll link in the description, this has a download button which will download a CSV file which can be opened in Excel. It looks like this with a few columns, the important ones being the title of the post, the score, which is the net upvotes, downvotes, the comments on the post, the body, which is the text under the title, and then a timestamp denoting when the post was made, including the date and the time. So we're going to jump into this and begin our analysis. We have the CSV file in the same folder as this Jupyter notebook right here, reddit_wsb.csv. And so we're going to start by importing pandas as PD and importing numpy as NP. So these are two libraries that we went over in the last video, and they're really important for data analysis and reading in this CSV file. Going to run that, and now they've been imported. So now what we're going to do is create a data frame, read in the CSV of this CSV file we just downloaded. So I saved it as reddit_wsb.csv. So if we read that in and run, now we have the data frame containing the CSV file inside this WSP_post data frame. So our next move is to kind of look into this date time object, because it's not super helpful to have these in one individual column. It might be more beneficial to have the date in one column and the time or hour in a separate column. So we're going to go ahead and break those out. I'm going to create a new data frame column by doing this. Right, so if I do WSB_posts and then brackets with a new column name, I'm declaring a new column, and we're going to date time, right? So convert the previous column, which was called timestamps, I believe. Yeah, so we're doing WSB_post.timestamp, which is reference to this column right here, and we're converting that into a date time object. And then we're just going to extract the date from this and store it in this date column. So the next thing would be to do the same thing but extracting the hour. So we're going to do that by posts hour. So this is our new column labeled hour. And then pd.toDateTime, same thing, extract the datetime object from this same column, and then do .dt.hour. So what we're doing here is extracting the hour from that datetime objects. And now we're just going to print this out to see what it looks like. Okay, so now we can see we've extracted it, and it has the timestamp as well as the date extracted from here along with the hour. So that's exactly what we want, and we have this new data to work with. So next, what we want to do is group these individual posts by their time, and using these new columns we created, the date and the hour, which will be useful in terms of grouping. So we can use a group by on some of the data in order to group it in terms of similar hours and similar dates. So let's see, we do a group by the date first, and we're going to use the column.theGroupBy function, and we're going to do that over the date, and then we're going to aggregate, which means to combine these, and use the score as the mean, and then we're going to use the number of comments, which is comsnum, and we're going to use the mean from that, and then we're going to use the post count. We'll just use those for now, actually, and I should wrap this inside here. Okay, so now we have this group by date. with the aggregate and the score being the mean and the mean of the number of comments, which we have comsnum, the mean from here, and the mean from the score. And now we're basically going to do the same thing, so I can just kind of copy this, except we're going to do it by date and hour. So now we have date. We might want to make this a list so that we can include both the date and the hour. Then we're going to aggregate using the same method as before. Let's run that. All right, so now we have them grouped by, and we have these two new columns for extracting the date and the hour from the timestamp. So now we're just going to do a short little graphical analysis to see what the data looks like that we're looking at. And we're going to use this library called Plotly. And I don't have it currently installed, but if in Jupyter Notebooks you could do exclamation point, which makes it kind of like a pseudo terminal environment. And we can do a little pip install Plotly, which will install that, and then we can import it. Plotly.express as px. So now we've imported the Plotly library, and now we can just do some configuration settings for using Plotly to its desired content. So now we're going to use this group by date hour object variable we've created in order to plot it and see what it looks like and see how these are changing over time. I'm going to do a reset index just to realign everything. And then we're going to do a plot, and we're going to do the y. Let's do it as the number of comments. So if we run this, it might take a short while. Plotly. There we go. And I'll rerun it. And we should get a graph that has exactly the columns number, so the comms number, the number of comments. So you can see these spikes and then kind of a lull. So we had a lot. This data begins in January the 28th of January. So it's really active during these first few days, the first 50 hours, 100 hours. And then it kind of mellows out a little bit once the hype has gone down a little bit, which makes sense because the activity was mainly focused in these earlier days. So now let's go to just one more plot. We can do the score and see how the upvotes have changed. So group by date hour dot reset index. So we're standardizing it. Plot, and y is the score. So let's see how the score, which is the net upvote downvote, has changed. So it's definitely a little more hectic in the beginning, then it mellows a bit on average in the later stages. So that's definitely an interesting thing to look at. So now we're going to begin the actual emotional analysis or analysis of text. And we're going to use a library called text to emotion, which detects emotion behind the text. And it basically helps you understand and do an analysis of the emotion behind the words. And for this, we're going to do similar as Plotly. We're going to pip install text to emotion the same way we did before. And so this exclamation point will run this command in line. And then we're just going to import text to emotion as TE just to make the calls to it a little bit less wordy. So we could run that, and I believe I already have it installed, but if not, you'll see the installation happen here. And so what we're going to do now is we have this body and the title, and it might be more beneficial if we can combine them together because sometimes the body, although not always present, adds a little bit more sentiment to the title and gets more into the nitty-gritty details of what the user is trying to say. So we're going to make a new column that will contain the entire text of the title plus the body. So what we're going to do is this, and we're going to do the title. I'm going to add a little colon between to separate, to distinguish between the two, and then do the body. And just to play it safe, we can cast it to a string, just in case it's not already. So once we do that, we can run, and now let's see what our data frame looks like. Okay, so we see this. Let's scroll over. Now we have the timestamp, the date, the hour, and this all text column, which contains the title, exit the system, then colon, the CEO of NASDAQ, and it has that all here. So that's great. So we're really having a data set with all the necessary things that we need to do with it. So now we're going to do a bit of using this text-to-emotion library, and it does take a while for the processing to begin, and it might take you a few hours for this analysis to be done for the entire data set. So I'm going to show you how to do this. We're going to create a emotions list and store all the different emotions that we're going to do, that we're going to extract from the text. And then we're going to append them while we iterate through all the different alt text columns within this. So we're going to use a kind of cool library called TQDM. And it's basically a progress bar when you're iterating over something, which is really useful when it's some data that's this large, because this will take, on my computer, probably several hours. So it's nice to have that progress bar just to know where you are. And this is the setup for using it. So we're importing it, then we're applying it to pandas, the data frame. And now we're going to say for text in TQDM WSB_post.all_text. So we're using that column that we just made, which has the title plus the body. And then we're going to append it to this new list that we've created up here, emotions. TE, which is the text to emotions library. Get emotion, that's the function you want to call. That'll calculate a score for each of these. And we're just going to make sure everything's type compliant, so it'll be a string. And I'm going to run this. You can see it's a decently nice interface, but it will take a while. 7 out of 31,000, since it's quite a large data set. So I'll be back once this is done downloading, and we can continue with the analysis. Okay, so now that the process is complete and we've iterated through all 31,810, we now have this emotions list, which contains all of the results from the getEmotion function from text to emotion. And we're going to go through and append all of these new tags to the data frame so we can see how it's evaluated each title and body. So we're going to do emotion data, and we're going to make a new data frame. And we're going to do from the dictionary and emotion. So now we have this new data frame from all of this list that we've appended to. So now we're going to go through and basically go through each of the emotions that it contains. I believe there's 5 different emotions in the standard get emotion. So we'll basically just go through, I think it's happy, angry, surprised, sad, and fear. And we'll just build out this data frame with those emotions. So .happy. Right, so we have happy, and we can just copy that. And next we can do angry, .angry. And then we can do surprise, and we can do sad, and then fear. So this will be interesting to see how it's progressed over and then let's print out the final data frame here so we can see what it looks like. Okay, so now we have this here, and we see it contains the same information that it did from the previous data frame. But if we scroll over, we see these new columns that are on a scale from 0 to 1, and it's going to rate each of these alt texts according to its own algorithm that determines this. So we can see this first one, it is basically rating it as 100% as a fear post, while this one is more divided between angry, surprised, sad, and fear. But that's a pretty strong sentiment away from a happy or positive post. So you can see it gets really into the more continuous side rather than a discrete value with 0.07 for angry and then a majority fear. And so now we have these, we can kind of group them by hour and day to see how it's progressed over time and how WallStreetBets sentiment has changed with the fluctuations in GameStop or AMC price, or whatever stock they're looking at. So now we can do a by day analysis, and let's do another group by. So we're going to group by the mean date. And if we do a by hour, we can do a group by, we do the same thing as last time, a date, comma, hour. We could also do the mean here. And so let's run this just to get those group bys completed. Okay, now that we have those, we're going to go on to the final part, which will be a visual analysis of basically all these emotions that we've calculated here. So if we do a new figure, we can do by hour first and reset the index just to standardize the data frame. And let's do happy. So right now we're looking at the happy emotions within the data frame, and we can see how happy has changed over time as it went from January 28th to February 5th around. So let's say, just give it some labels here so it looks nice. We'll do ratio of words of each emotion, and then we can do an index as hours since 9 a.m. on 1/28/21. Okay, and then we can give a title. You can say trends in emotions based on r/WallStreetBets post by hour. And just to clean this up, I'll backspace that, enter. Okay, now we're going to add the scatter graphs in, which will be a really good way of determining the trends. So we can do by hour of sad. Mode will be lines, so we can really see the true trend line. And we will name this sad. Now we're going to add all the other emotions in. Let's do angry. We can do surprise next. Then we can do fear at the end. Oh, just to keep it consistent, I'll make this lowercase. And then fear. And then all we have to do to make it show is a figure.show. If we run this, we get a really nice graph, trends and emotions based on r/WallStreetBets post by hour. And we can really see, so fear is the dominant emotion throughout the whole thing, and angry seems to be consistently the lowest, and then surprised and sad are really sandwiched in between those. But we can see an interesting thing happen over time. So people are fearful, that spikes, And then it kind of continues on. At the very end, though, we see this surprise really take hold of the whole subreddit. So that's interesting that it happened around when the stock price of GameStop started to decrease significantly. So that's an interesting thing to keep track of, because I think, it's pretty telling as to how the market's moving. Just analyzing these WallStreetBets posts, you can honestly kind of get a sense of how they are reacting to the stock price movements, which is really interesting. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. And please remember to like and subscribe. And thank you, and looking forward to the next video.